Hello, mainstreamers and cinephiles and everybody in between. I'm Bryant.
And I'm Caitlyn.
And Operation Silver Screen is a go.
Hello, welcome to Operation Silver Screen. This cinema-related operation has been created to clear our desks from stacks of open cases. And what are these cases? Well, even being the film lovers that we are, Bryant and I have a huge backlog of must-see films that we still need to experience. So each week we'll tackle a film that either one of us, or both of us, still need to see. We'll then provide a debrief of our week's mission, given our outlook on the film's popularity and significance, as well as providing our opinion on whether or not it is worth seeing and other fun insights. So Bryant, what did we do this week?
Summer is coming to a close, and with that, so is the blockbuster season. These past couple months, we discussed many blockbusters: Top Gun, Jurassic World, Predator, and though it wasn't the summer, even Pretty Woman was a blockbuster. Our assignment for this week is one very important summer blockbuster, the one that started it all, Jaws 1975. And before we get into this movie more, just know that this first portion of our episode is not going to have any spoilers. And when we get into the second portion, we will make sure to go ahead and give you that spoiler warning so that you can go back and watch the movie and come back later if you have not seen it. And talking about not having seen it, this is a movie in which I have seen and Caitlyn, you have not, which I was very surprised about. I actually had to check twice to make sure that you actually hadn't seen this movie. I know you're a fan of Stephen Spielberg, and Jaws just seems like something you would have seen.
I've seen clips of it, and I think I've seen one of the sequels, but don't ask me which one because I'm not entirely sure. Regardless, it wasn't very good. But Jaws is a film that I've really just not had a lot of interest in seeing. You're right, I am a big Spielberg fan, so I knew there was probably going to be things in this film that I liked, but I'm not huge on the premise. I think we had this discussion before, but sometimes you seem to be a little bit more sold on premises than I am. It takes me a little bit more than just the basic premise usually to get me into a film. And sharks isn't something that I'm particularly interested in. You know, I feel like back in high school, I feel like sharks were a big thing. Do you remember that? I feel like Shark Week was always being praised and watched. It was a time of Sharknado, which I did like Sharknado. I did like that era. But I do think that in general, shark media isn't something that I actively seek out.
I do remember when Shark Week came out, and that was a huge thing, especially during the time on network television. And then I remember, I forget when Sharknado came out. I did end up watching that eventually. And I remember we were at a theater. I forget what we saw together. I think I was still in high school at the time. You just got out, and there was a trailer for a shark movie. And I remember both of us were cracking up at that trailer because it just looked so awful. Because sometimes the premise of the sharks doesn't really work. No, way before Meg.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, actually, we tried to look for the movie afterwards. Like, we started talking about it again months or years later and couldn't find out what the movie was. But it was one of those movies where teens go out to a cabin. So how do sharks mess with teens in a cabin? I don't know.
I do remember this now. I have no idea what the movie is. Yeah, I do remember that trailer, but I have no idea what movie it was.
Yeah, and there's just been a lot of ridiculous shark movies, so I can kind of understand that. And I mean, even the Jaws sequels aren't good, though. So for me, for the first time, I did watch Jaws: The Revenge. If you do follow us on Instagram, you've seen the last 4 films that I watched on my Letterboxd recap. And I did watch Jaws: The Revenge. And again, you just said that I get sold on premises. Sometimes that works for bad movies too. And Jaws: The Revenge is a crazy concept. It's about the shark's offspring or somehow related to the original shark. And it comes after the Brody family for revenge.
Okay. That is a little bit more interesting of a premise.
Yes, and Sir Michael Caine is in it. So I was like, all right. And I was told that this was a movie that was so bad, it's fun to watch. And while I did get some good commentary out of it, it was still largely boring. There wasn't much happening in between. Also, I appreciate and laugh at the fact that they never explain why the shark goes for revenge, how it knows the family, because it's not in the same waters. and then it follows them when they go to the Bahamas. Like, I like to imagine that it paid off somebody to get their itinerary plans. Like a shark fin handing somebody $10.
The shark private eye.
Somebody just wanted a tax-free vacation in Bahamas.
Yeah, maybe I will give that one a try at some point. It does sound quite fun. But for the original Jaws, I feel like... Really? For original Jaws, I just feel like you kind of know what you're going to get before you get into it. So, having seen one of the sequels, I'm not sure which one it is, if it was 2 or 3, and just knowing the basic premise of Jaws, having seen some clips here and there of the movie, like, I pretty much knew what I was going to get going into this film. So I didn't really have any rush to go out and see it, even though I know it is a classic.
And I can understand that. And I mean, when we say that I'm sold on premise, this isn't a big premise. It's a shark terrorizes a beach. That's it. But again, you put in the name Stephen Spielberg. Everybody talks about how this is a must-see film. It's a masterclass in suspense. That is something that gets my attention. The reason we picked this film, like we said, is a summer blockbuster. But what do the critics have to say about this? What are the accolades that make this such a must-see film? And this film actually has quite a bit of them. First off, the IMDb of this film has an 8.1, which is a very high score. It actually places it at number 206 on their top 250 list. On Rotten Tomatoes, this film has a 97% critic rating and a 90% audience rating. This film has won 3 Oscars for Best Score, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, and a nomination for Best Picture. It's in the 1,001 Movies to See Before You Die. And the box office success for this was actually $407 million. $471.4 million. And what I found interesting is that 55% of that was made domestically. And you usually don't see a half and half with films, even in modern age. Usually you see most of it's one-sided. Mm-hmm. Caitlyn, is there anything that you found in your research to add on to the accolades?
I know that Spielberg was upset that he wasn't nominated for a Best Director nod in the Academy Awards, but he did get some other nods, and he was nominated by the Directors Guild of America for a DGA award, and the script was also nominated by the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, for Best Script, for Best Adapted Drama. It was also, in 2001, it was chosen for the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. We've already talked about quite a few films about this. It's for films that are seen as a cultural or historical significance or social significance. It also generally makes a lot of top 100 lists, including AFI, Entertainment Weekly, Rolling Stone, New York Times. All of these have at some point in time put these in their top 100 films of all time lists. So it's definitely a film that has a lot of significance in the critical acclaim. One thing I did find interesting, though, is that AFI, in addition to put it in their top 100 films or 100 years, 100 films list, they also put the shark as number 18 on its list of the 50 best movie villains, which I thought was fun. And if you know anything about Jaws, that shark actually does have a name. Very, very villainous name. Bruce, named after Spielberg's lawyer. So good old Brucey is making lists for his villainous ways.
I'm surprised it wasn't the mayor that made the list, because I think the mayor is more of the villain in this movie. And he's such a great... He's not only such a great villain, he's such an iconic villain. Like, when you think of movies and you think of politicians who just don't listen and are greedy, you think the mayor from Jaws.
Yeah, that's true. You definitely do.
And I don't blame Spielberg for being upset for not getting nominated for Best Director. Because sometimes you hear that and you think, man, come on. Like, you made a successful movie. You're kind of just, you're patting yourself on the back too much. But he put in so much work into this film. Like, so much. Like, just having to deal with the 3 Bruces for this film and trying to make a prop that can swim underwater. That in itself was frustrating. And then, of course, there's so much going on during production, and some of the actors, mainly Robert Shaw, weren't making it any easier.
Yeah, the producers of the film, they saw the book, they bought the rights to the film right away, and they didn't really think about the difficulties it would take to make this film, and there was a lot of difficulties, which I think we'll get into in a little bit. And Spielberg at one point wanted to just leave the film. I think he didn't want to do it, but he was already contractually obligated to make this film. There is one award, but I was surprised it wasn't nominated for, and that was for cinematography, because that was something that stood out with me in the film. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we talk about our opinion on the film, but I was actually surprised it did not get a nom for that.
And what is this film about? For those who don't know the iconic story of Jaws, I'm going to go ahead and give you a plot summary. So, this is the story of Bruce, the aforementioned Bruce, a 25-footer great white shark that has made a journey into unfamiliar territory, attempting to start a new life. However, his eating habits place the town in a panic when he dines on a couple locals. Who can blame him, though? If it was so wrong, they would have closed the beaches. Would you agree with me, Caitlyn, that Bruce is the true victim in this movie?
Yeah, I think so. He's just minding his business, doing his little shark things, and just these people just go after him. They're all up in his waters. Jeez. All up in his territory.
I'm pretty sure they closed down the beaches. Yeah, if they closed down the beaches, he would have just went away. Like, all right, I guess, I'm not allowed to be here. But then you serve him up. Like, he eats one person and the next day you just throw more in there? What are you supposed to think?
There's a lot of people in that beach, too. A lot of kids, little tiny humans. Quite a platter there for good old Brucey.
Caitlyn, you being the one that has watched this for the first time, what did you think of it?
For the Spielbergian? That's what I'm going to say. For the Spielbergian elements in this movie, I liked those elements to this film. Like I said, the premise, it's not something that I'm really drawn to. It didn't really hook me in. But I think that there were things to enjoy in this film, namely the way that he built suspense, which is something that I think we can talk a little about in a little bit. But overall, I think this is a film that had a pretty good beginning and it had a good ending, but I feel like the middle part of this film really dragged for me. Did you think that at all?
I did, actually. I can't remember my exact thoughts the first time watching it. I remember liking it. And watching it the second time, I think it slowed down for me a bit. I was thinking to myself, man, they've been fighting this shark for a while. Which, kudos on them. They had a long battle. And that's really what you want to see. And yeah, there was just one point I was like, all right, we can speed this up a bit. I was like, this is a little too technical.
I think that there's a lot of dialogue moments in this film that I really liked. There's a monologue at the end that is particularly, it's known for that monologue, and it's a monologue that Spielberg himself says that he really likes. And so there's a lot of moments just with people talking. You get the typical Spielberg where you have multiple conversations going on the screen at one time. And I think that those elements really created a realistic kind of view to the film, and I think it felt very genuine. But those are something that we know Spielberg does well at. That's something that he's known for. We've seen it in E.T., we've seen it in Close Encounters, and those elements I think were great. I just wish that they could have shown past the pacing a little bit. I think the pacing was kind of a problem for me in this film, and being what we know as the first blockbuster, I think that surprised me a little bit. I kind of did expect a little bit more.
That doesn't surprise me because even in modern blockbusters, I start to fall asleep. Like, there's just some long parts where nothing's happening. Almost every blockbuster nowadays has to go over the 2-hour mark for some reason. And I know we've talked about that before, and it's something I don't enjoy. I think it can just go on for way too long, and I think you can trim out some of the fat. Like I said, I think you can probably trim 15 minutes out of this film. But I have my notes too that I think that some may find moments to drag in this film, and I can't blame them. Because this film isn't high tempo. I think the pacing, it goes back and forth. I think it's all right. This movie, its pacing is in two separate parts. You have your first half on land, you have your second half at sea. And they both each have their own pacing to it, their own build up, rise, and fall to those two halves. I'm not saying it feels like two different movies, but there is a shift there. It almost resets. And when I think about this film, I really want to say, and I want to say it like in the most respectable way, that it is one of the best basic films out there. Like it is, like you usually say, it's a solid film, but it's not a crazy, it's not a crazy plot. There's not a lot going on. It's just about a shark terrorizing a town. They won't shut down the beaches. The chief goes out and tries to do something about this. And that's it. That's the movie. And but they do so much with it, not even just in the suspense, but making likable characters. And you said that Spielberg's dialogue, his dialogue, it makes it interesting and it can put some tempo in the movies during its down parts. But there's not really too much going on in this film. And I mean that in like the best way. Not every film has to be completely extravagant and fantastical and crazy. It's fine to have a nice basic film, and this one it has that, but it has the class in it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I was watching J.J. Abrams' TED Talk again. I watched it years and years ago, but I just watched it again because in that TED Talk he shows the scene where he's at the dinner table, our main character, and he has his youngest son with him, and the son is kind of mimicking what he's doing at the dinner table, and it's very nice. It's a sweet scene, and J.J. Abrams said that this was his favorite scenes in Jaw because while we're set up to think that this is a movie about a shark, he says it's really about a man just trying to find his place in the world, his place with his family in this new town, and it's the character story that really matters. And while I agree that I think that shines in moments in Jaws, I think that I would have liked that just a little bit more. I think I could have used a little bit more of that next step in the character story. But there were characters that I liked. I would say I don't really like our main character, though.
I actually really like our main character, but two things first. One, I just realized that a great saying that goes to this movie is that this town ain't big enough for the both of us. Because both Bruce and Brody move into town.
That's true.
But one of them's got to leave.
At the same time. Dang, that's true.
And they do have a gunfight at dawn. They're both looking at each other. Wow, this is a Western SC.
It is.
A Western on the shoreline. The other thing you said with you would like some more of those humane moments. I feel like that's where the book would have succeeded more in providing that. But I think for a movie, it's a good thing that they removed some of that, because I think, again, this is a movie you only have so long to tell a story, so long to compact things. And also you got to make things balance with the shark and with the human characters, the people, like what's bringing people to the theater, and then you're providing them with a little bit of extra, because there were other things going on in the book, such as an affair and the mafia. And I think that would have been cool, like reading about it, but watching the movie, I think it would have interrupted the pacing even more.
That's true. I think my problem is that I just really, like I said, I wasn't a fan of our main character Brody, and I feel like I didn't really feel his internal struggles as much as I would have liked. As far as our side characters, I think that they were done superbly. As far as Hooper and Quint goes, those are our other two main leads. But as far as Brody himself, I just wasn't a fan of him. I thought he was a very bad dad. Because there's a shark in the water, and like every time he turned around, his kids were in the water, and he was like, "Oh, this is fine."
Well, he put them in the pond. And wasn't expecting
a pond. It was like a little bay area.
Well, he was trying to pull his one kid out of the boat, and the mother said, "No, allow him to play in there." Until she saw a picture of the shark biting the boat and said, "No, get out of there." Mm-hmm. And I would have liked some more time with our protagonist. I actually really liked his setup. I really like his character. And honestly, I would have liked a movie, a sequel in the aftermath of it all, like no shark included, just him with his internal struggle, because something very depressing happens in this movie. And I would say like the pacing kind of affects this, because at first they don't make a big deal out of it, but then the story comes back around to it and it's a very big deal, but I feel like it lost some of that steam going into it. But I think that's something that it would have affected our protagonist more than what was shown. And I would have liked to see more with that character. one thing I really like about this protagonist is it's a flawed protagonist, but not to the point where we need to dive in and kind of check this out. Like he likes to drink. He is a drinking man, but he's not an alcoholic, which is what I like. Which is probably the best way to put it in perspective. He does drink a lot, but it's not to the point where he's just drunkenly stumbling around the entire movie, unlike one of the actors. But we'll get into that later.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like he had, this was his way of kind of fighting the tension, but it wasn't something where it was so big that you wonder why the movie doesn't dive into it more. You're like, okay, that's our character. There's also something I noticed the second time is how much he fidgets. Like he's fidgeting with things and how much time he spends like trying to decompress and relax. You can tell visually, and I think Spielberg does a great job with this. You can tell visually like how much all of this, no pun intended, is eating at him. Which is why I say again, like this is a basic film, but they're putting so much more into it.
I agree. I think you do really feel his anxiety. He's someone who lives on an island. He just moved to this island, but he's afraid of water. He's afraid of getting in the water, and he doesn't like the idea of drowning. But I think for me, the film sets him up as someone who's speaking for the people, who's going against this mayor who wants to keep the beaches open, who really only cares about the economic situation of the town and doesn't really have the interests of the people in his mind. And so I kept thinking there was going to be a moment where he's really going to stand his ground, and I feel like I never really got that moment. He does a little bit, but nothing that's a big moment for him. He kind of just seems like a very anxious person.
And I like that in a way that it's grounded, because honestly, this is how it would work in real life. And I can say I've been in positions like that, working law enforcement, and you really want to do something, you feel like it's the right way, and then you have politics that come in, but then everything that you predicted ends up happening, and now you got to go with your plan, which should have been the plan to go with from the beginning. But you don't get that moment that I feel like in a lot of movies they give you, that satisfying moment where he punches the mayor out and takes his hand and forces him to sign something. No, he goes up to him. It takes more skill than just not punching them. And I mean, in real life and in filming, Steven Spielberg just had him punch him, force them to sign it. But no, they kind of had like a talk and pulled him aside and again raised that tension and went about it a different, still satisfying way.
I feel like I didn't need him to, have that physical altercation, but I felt like I expected there to be a moment where he was more empathetic to the people, and I don't feel like I got that. He's put as chief of police, and he's responsible for these people, but even these things that are happening to him, he doesn't really seem very empathetic to the people he's taking care of. I think he's trying to find his place, and he is an outsider in this new town, but I don't think it ever switches to kind of incorporate him more into this idea of community.
I see that because, yeah, he's friendly with people, but he's not super friendly. And he does try to close down the beaches at first and really tries to fight for it. But I see what you're saying, so I'm not going to repeat it. That is something I wish I had more of with his character, and I think it's something that could have been explored more in the books as well. And like I said, there is an affair that goes on in the books, and that happens with his wife, and it would make more sense with this type of character. I think originally, because this movie was kind of being made on a day-to-day basis, just like Pretty Woman, there were a lot of rewrite script changes. It was being developed as it was shooting. I think his character was meant to have more, because he seems like a very complex character, but you don't get to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I think that's my issue.
We talked about that. We keep talking about this actually, where in horror films, which this is, you can get a lot of complexity within the first two acts, but once that third act hits, once that climax hit, once the ghosts come out of the closet, you lose all that a lot of times. Sometimes more than others. But I still like this movie. I still think it's a great movie, and we talked about it a lot, building suspense and an appropriate level of unlikable and likable characters. Because I hate the mayor, but it's like I'm not saying he's an unlikable character because I don't like the way he's written. I'm just saying because he's written to be an unlikable person.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that you're supposed to like, you like them to the appropriate level, and then you have somebody who you kind of go back and forth with, which is Quint, the old, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Grizzly.
Yeah, the old gritty fisherman.
I said he was a stereotypically grizzly captain. He's very much the Captain Ahab of our story.
Yes, very much so, because that's kind of what they were thinking about with this movie. That kind of provided some inspiration here.
I will have to say, I started this movie without subtitles. Usually I do turn them on right away, but for some reason I didn't. And I was good until he got to his monologue, and I was like, I gotta put this on. He's too grizzly.
And I think it's a well put together film that I think it grasps your attention, and I think it keeps it. Like, yeah, it loses you, it drags for just a little bit here and there, but I don't think it completely loses your attention. I don't think it like completely takes you out of the film. But again, it is a pretty grounded film in danger and heroics, which I think again was just done wonderfully in the best way that it could be. And like you said, it dragged for you, and I even have here in my notes that while it may drag for some, it is only for a moment. And is that true for you? Was it only a moment that this was dragging for you, or did it kind of go on for? When I say a moment, I mean like 5 minutes. Oh, really?
Oh, way longer than 5 minutes. I would say like most of the film it dragged for a while.
Oh, wow.
The beach scenes, I enjoyed the beach scenes, but there were times away from the beach that lost my attention, and there's a little bit of a middle part there when they were planning to get on this boat that lost my attention. But then I did come back to it once they were finally on the boat, just seeing the interactions between the three men and the way they kind of played off each other, because I do think that they had really good chemistry, which is kind of surprising knowing that Robert Shaw, who played Quint, he was kind of a problem on set. He was very antagonistic towards Richard Dreyfuss, who plays Matt Hooper, and this might have been intentional in order to kind of build up some of the banter they had between them. But watching them together, particularly those two together on that boat and the scenes they had together, it definitely is very engaging, and I think that's definitely what brought me back into the film.
They did have good chemistry, and yeah, chemistry doesn't always, I mean, in like literal chemistry, you don't always have a positive reaction. It's not always a good thing. Sometimes the beaker explodes, and it works in this film. It sucks though when somebody's like that on set, and I don't think it was all intentional, because he was drinking for a large portion of the film, and they were just having a lot of troubles with him. They were also having to fly him out to Canada every couple of days. Did you read about that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he was in trouble for tax evasion, so he could only be in the country for so long. So to kind of break it up, they flew him to Canada to separate the days. But I did like the banter between them. I like the interaction between a lot of the characters. Again, actually this isn't really so much contributed to Spielberg. I mean, some of it is, but also the writer as well for this one. Though Spielberg seems to always have really good writers with him. So I'm pretty sure he has some influence. And that writer being Peter Benchley, who was also the author for the novel, though he was kicked off set eventually, because he was pressing a lot of ideas that the studio didn't agree with. And then you had Carl, let's go with Carl G, because I'm not even going to try to pronounce that.
Yeah, Carl, and I think there were other writers too, other than just those two people. I know, but it kind of switched hands a lot of times, and that tends to happen, and not all writers on films get their due credit. But I know that this did switch hands a lot.
I want to be interested in what your letter grade is going to be here. I don't know if the audience feels the same way, but I'm going kind of back and forth. Sometimes I try to predict it, but I'm a little off with this one.
I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be. It'll be definitely on the fly, because we'll see. I'm kind of going back and forth with my grade, so we'll see. I think it's hard watching a Spielberg film that I'll say that I don't entirely like this film. I appreciate it, and I appreciate a lot of things on it, but when you compare it to things like Jurassic Park and E.T. and Close Encounters, Spielberg's greats, and that's just to name some of the big ones. It's hard to rank it on its own, knowing that he's capable of a lot. And I think that as a director, he did a great job for this based on what he had to deal with. But compared to those other films, it's like, well, it's all right.
I can't say that I have that same issue. I mean, I totally understand it, but I don't have that same issue. I think when I start to notice and I start to relate the director to the property is when I'm feeling a lot of their style over the substance. That's the only time when the name really starts kind of applying to the film for me.
Yeah, I think I definitely have more connection to the director. I feel like, for another example, watching The Northman recently, and I feel like in the back of my head I was constantly comparing it to The Witch, to The Lighthouse, when you're talking about Robert Eggers films. And so I do think I have it in the back of my mind when it's a director that I generally like. When they have a disappointing film for you personally, it's like, oh, okay, well, this didn't live up to my expectations that I had because of those other films that I've seen from that director.
Jeez, you're that person that tells people you're disappointed, not mad, aren't you? Like, you could have done better. I'll just say it was a bad film. Now you're like, you're better than this.
Yeah, that's my problem. Same with Men by Alex Garland.
Oh, the
recently.
movie.
Yeah.
That was too long
I'm just
of a pause.
disappointed in Men. I'm just very disappointed in Men. But that was another example. It's like, oh, okay, I know what you're capable of, so I'm going to judge this a little bit more harsher than I would a different director.
Okay, yeah. And I think that's why I understand, because I think I do bring a little bit with that. Like, it's what gets me in the theater, but then I extract it from my mind, and then I kind of give two opinions on the movie. Because we've had two movies this year. We had Men and we had Nope. And both of those, I'm like, all right, this is what I think about the film in general. But compared to what they've done before, because both of those directors have made films that I absolutely love, I have another opinion where, yeah, I'm like, it was not their best. And I think they could have probably done more. But I'll still say, hey, you did good, champ. You did good.
I would not put Nope in that category. Because compared to Us, Nope was phenomenal. Get Out, I can understand, but I don't know. Nope, I think was right on par with my expectations, maybe a little bit above. But like I said, Men, The Northman, compared to what came before, different.
I haven't seen The Lighthouse yet, so The Northman was pretty much clear for me. I've just seen The Vivitch.
Okay. Although, to be honest, The Lighthouse isn't really my favorite either. But it's a good... I respect what it is. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. That's a whole different topic.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of on topic. We're talking about a lighthouse. A lighthouse is on a shore. Shores have oceans. Oceans have sharks. Speaking of the shark, Bruce, what did you think about him? What did you think about the effects?
The effects. Are we going to get to talk about the effects now?
It is a big portion. The $750,000 worth of effects.
Yeah.
In Bruce alone.
Good old Brucey. Yeah, so when the studio learned that they could not train an actual shark, which apparently that was newsworthy, groundbreaking for them to learn, they kind of went about filming Bruce in a couple different ways. And the first way was, actual footages of sharks that they used while they were in like a shark cage. So there are some shots that are actual sharks. But for the most part, what they used animatronic sharks. Huge, huge animatronic sharks. That, they worked great, splendidly, perfectly okay on land. In the water, where, they actually need the shark to be, that was a whole different story because the water dislocated several electrical components of the shark and it just was not working. There were times where the shark just couldn't move. If it moved at all, it was slow, it was sluggish, one of the animatronic sharks completely sank during filming, and it went right to the bottom of the water. They had to get it out at some point. It was a mess. This was a great stress for Spielberg. So with this situation, they had to kind of get creative. And that's when Spielberg decided to kind of switch up how he was approaching this film. And to counteract this, they actually decided to not show the shark in many scenes. And this in turn caused more terror and suspense to the shark. If you watch that first scene with, I believe her name's Chrissy?
Yes.
Chrissy, she's our first victim. She goes skinny dipping and she gets attacked by the shark. And it's very much a Friday the 13th kind of moment in this film, how this film opens. You just have your sexually promiscuous teenagers going out and one gets attacked by the slasher villain. But you never see that villain. But it was Bruce all along.
Yeah, the problems with the shark, it led to brilliant filmmaking because they couldn't show it, so they had to find out a way. And we talked about this before as well with the French New Wave, that they had to find roundabout ways of filming things that they wanted to film but didn't have the technology or the money to do so, and ended up creating some spectacular scenes and some things that we still use to this date. Though the shark did actually float at first, or it swam, but it was in fresh water. They didn't know that it was going to sink once it hit salt water and everything went to crap. And also, Chrissy, I just noticed, is the name of a character in Stranger Things.
Yeah, I was wondering if
This
there was
most
a
recent scene?
connection. Yeah.
I bet there was a connection. I wonder if the big bad in Stranger Things is going to be named Bruce.
Probably.
Also, every time we mention a shark, I watched Toy Story as well recently, or actually today. And I gotta say, the shark, there's a scene with a shark in Toy Story that's been more prominent in my head than Jaws. I guess because of the recency effect. But where Woody's looking for his hat, he's like, "Where's my hat?" And the shark just pops up with the hat on and goes, "Howdy, howdy, howdy."
Yeah.
That's stuck in my head now. Like, I keep seeing that.
See, I keep thinking of Finding Nemo because that shark was named Bruce. Correct?
I'm pretty sure that that was a
nod.
that was an actual
Obviously,
reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what did you think about the, like, obviously it's a bit dated, but what did you think about it? Like, what did you think about it now, and what would you have thought about it long before, if you can put yourself in that perspective?
I mean, they really did accomplish a lot because, he wanted to film on the water. He filmed at Martha's Vineyard on the water, I believe, is where they filmed.
Yes.
But that was something that really hadn't previously been done, and the cinematographer had to use a lot of rigs and equipment to better suit filming on and under the water, and so that involved keeping it stable, using rigs to keep the camera stable because of the tides, and also involved constructing a box so that the camera could be submerged. So there was a lot that went into this film that really was groundbreaking, and it was a struggle. It was. So the budget was originally $4 million, but it ended up costing about $9 million just because of all the effects and struggles of filming on the water. It made it go over budget, and the schedule too was, I think, triple what it was meant to be, just because of different delays, reshoots, issues with the cast. I know all the cast got seasick at some point, and there was a couple other accidents that happened on set. So there was a lot that just went into this film, but I can really respect from that time period and what they were able to accomplish. As far as what it looks like, I think I mentioned before that I really enjoyed the cinematography in this film. I think that the composition especially was just so well done. The shots were just beautiful. I think you could pick out any shot from this film and the composition is going to be really well done. I know also, as far as costuming goes and props, they made sure not to put too much red in the film because they wanted that red blood to stand out when you had the shark attacks. So there was just a lot of attention to detail in the cinematography and in the props and costuming, and I think it really shows. I really did like that element of the film.
Yeah, it worked out fantastic, everything that he did for, like, even shooting kind of right above the water so the audience feels like they're treading water. And again, this is why I think it's kind of reasonable that he felt not betrayed, but it was a hard for him not to be nominated for Best Director after putting so much work into this film when it was nominated for so much of what he put into it as well.
And I don't remember if
And
I already mentioned this, but he was only 27 when he directed this.
yes, he was very, very young. And he was actually worried that he was going to be kicked out of Hollywood for this. I mean, you have a 27-year-old who doubled the budget and tripled the shooting days. And I don't know, he's probably packing his bags ready to go. And then this released in the summer, and they were like, whoa, 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 come back here, Spielberg. And I think it also helped that, like right from the beginning, Spielberg knew the difference between a shark and a whale. So that was good. The bar was low because the original director that they had picked out for this, he was describing how he was going to do his opening shot. He said that they were going to be coming, you're going to be kind of the same water tracking shot, and then out comes the whale. They said, yeah, we're not working with somebody who doesn't know the difference between the whale and a shark.
Yeah.
And could you imagine having to create a practical whale?
Oh gosh, no.
Especially during that time.
That'd be awful. Now, I know of a person who did the shark. The animatronic was also the same guy who did Disney's 2000 Leagues Under the Sea, that monster. That I did know. So you did have someone who was experienced with creating kind of a big rig.
Yes. Yeah. It worked much better than their paper mache shark from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also, like, when you actually, so you do see the shark. You get to see the shark. And I think it looks good, even to today's standard. I mean, I don't know if a shark would really move like that. Everybody's kind of seen when the shark is hopped up on the boat. But it's still very cool looking. It's still effective. It still looks terrifying. I can see why people were scared of it when they first watched the movie. You know, you have two big scaring moments in this movie, and that shark appearing when the chum is being fed was originally the scariest scene. But Spielberg there was another scene he wanted to be scarier, so he reshot it. But since that scene was scarier, the test reactions later, the one that they were originally scared of, didn't scare them as much. Mm-hmm. And that's when Spielberg he learned that you really can only have one good scare in a movie. You get one major scare, that's it. Because from that point, their guard is up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that too just kind of goes along with if you have a creature that you're implying that you're making a point not to show, and that you have that reveal, it's going to be more terrifying.
Yeah, you already mentioned one of the directors, someone who did it really well in their marketing was J.J. Abrams and Cloverfield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody was wondering what that monster was going to be looking like.
Granted, he didn't direct Cloverfield, but he produced it.
He produced it. Well, I'm pretty sure the producer has even more say in the marketing too. So he definitely got some influence, or he had something to look at, I'm sure, with this.
Yeah, in his TED Talk, he mentions it as an example of the idea of his mystery box. J.J. Abrams is known for his idea of the mystery box, and so part of the mystery of Jaws was not being able to see it, and that's what made it more terrifying when it was revealed. So he did definitely cite that as an influence.
And did you mention that they did actually use some real sharks for this film?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah, just for a couple scenes.
Yeah, and I know that they had to film it a certain way to make the sharks seem very large, because the animatronics were very large.
They made the cage smaller, and they got a smaller man, possibly somebody with dwarfism. But they just got everything smaller and make the shark look bigger, which is a classic technique. Scaling, I believe they call it. Mm-hmm. Anything else about your opinion of this film that I should know? That we should know? We want answers, Caitlyn.
I will say there's a line in this film, obviously we're going to need a bigger boat is the iconic line. It's, considered to be one of the best movie quotes, which was improvised, by the way, by Schneider. It was an improvised line. But the line that really got me for some reason, but I just really liked, was at the beginning he's talking to the mayor, And after this death happens, he's like, we got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July. And I don't know why, but that line cracked me up. Because I think it really just summed up a lot that was going on in that beginning part of the movie. Got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Yeah, that perfectly sums it up. We mentioned it here and there a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and get into the influence and significance of this film, starting with the influence. Caitlyn, you want to go ahead and take the lead on that?
So, we kind of already talked about it being like the start of all blockbusters, but I kind of want to go into that a little bit more because it really did play a major part in establishing what we know as the summer blockbuster season. It's the first movie to pass the milestone of making $100 million at the box office. And it was the first to really be marketed as this big event. You know, I think we're seeing it now that big event movies are really a huge thing with Marvel movies, but this was really the first time we had a big event film. Usually films before Jaws, they would be released in a couple theaters, a handful of theaters, and then as it gained more popularity, then it spread. But as far as the marketing and release of this film goes, it definitely broke the norm of what was happening with films at that time. And I think that this wasn't even originally supposed to be released in summer, if I was correct. I believe this was originally supposed to release in December.
Yes, this was supposed to be a Christmas movie.
Yeah, which makes absolutely no sense. But it really was such a successful film, and it inspired so much merchandise. So much merchandise. I think when Star Wars came out, the one with the porgs, we joked about how the porgs were just a ploy for toys. But, the amount of Jaws toys that came out of this film, it is kind of funny to see, how that kind of goes around. I think we associate blockbusters with toys now, but, until that moment, I don't think we necessarily had that association. And it really was a success. It was the highest grossing film of all time until it was overthrown in 1977 by Star Wars. And I think those two films together really just kicked up this whole idea of the blockbuster.
And to add on what you said with the 100 million mark that it passed, that was, it may not seem like a lot, but that was actually 100 million in theater rentals. So that's after the theater took their cut, which is about half of what the actual box office would be. So it was well over $200 million that it made in total. And like I said, it made $471.4 million in the box office. So almost $500 million in the 70s with limited marketing, limited theaters. Because this actually only released while it was a wide release, and that's where we get our wide and limited release from. It was still less than 1,000 theaters it opened up in. And the reason that the summer actually used to be the dumping ground. It used to be where they thought these films aren't going to succeed. Let's throw them out there. And the reason they believed that, because right now you're probably thinking that's crazy because summer blockbuster, that's a thing. Like during the summer, you look forward to going out to the movie theaters. Well, they believed in America that more people would be wanting to stay outside, that they wouldn't want to go to the movie theater. So nobody's going to go to the movie theaters because it was summertime. So that's where they just threw out anything. And they thought, during the holiday seasons is really when families get together and they go out to movie theaters, really thinking about, they kind of had this idea of American tradition. But, nobody wants to be out on the beach 24 hours. After a while, it gets kind of hot. Want to go into a nice, cool theater and watch some kids get eaten.
Yeah. I mean, even nowadays, like if you're at the beach for a week, you get rainy days. Summer, there's always going to be storms. So you need to have something to do on those rainy days.
And there was theaters. And now they're streaming.
Yeah.
And I wonder, too, if January and February, were they always the dumping month? Because they are now the dumping month. Now, January and February, not even February so much, though. February's changed because of Get Out and Deadpool. February's not looking too bad anymore. But January's still pretty bad. And that's usually because the award movies are still being spectated. That's when they start to kind of have that semi-wide release. Mm-hmm. And people are looking at those more so. So then January, they just throw things out there. If you go ahead and you look at the past couple years in January, look at those releases, you'll see that trend. You'll especially see it with horror movies, which is why people were thinking that Get Out, especially myself, I was like, February horror movie? And I was like, this crazy concept. A lot of people didn't really think it was gonna, I'm sure a lot of people didn't think that it was going to do as well as it did.
Yeah, I didn't remember, but it came out in February.
We've talked about some odd influences too, some unexpected influences on society itself. We talked about Top Gun and its influences with the Navy, all the recruitments that the Navy started to get. Well, this movie also had a big influence on Martha Vineyards. And they originally, before this film had been released, had a tourist population of 5,000. Afterwards, it tripled, literally having a tourist population of 15,000.
Really?
And and they weren't totally cooperative with the studio. Like, they were cooperative, but they weren't playing easy with it. They told them that you can build, your studio set. I think it was Quint's boatyard.
Mm-hmm.
They built that on the lot, and the studio told them, like, you can build it there, but at the end you have to tear it down and make it look exactly like it did, right down to the litter. And also in Martha Vineyard, there was a man who is not accredited in this film, but should have been, and that is Lynn Murphy. So Lynn Murphy, he had his own boat shack, and he lived close to where they were filming. And while they were doing some spray paint, the mist was getting onto his boat. So he came out there, started talking to the individuals, and then he started noticing that they have no idea what they're doing. So he became the fisherman advisor for that film, but he wasn't accredited for this. I'm not sure if they paid him at all, but he's a unknown hero right there. So if anything, I mean, you got mentioned on Operation Silver Screen, Lynn Murphy.
There you go. No, I'm surprised that you said that tourism went up, because in general, the movie was being accredited for less people going to the beaches that summer. There definitely was an increased anxiety in a social setting just because, there was more supposed shark sightings after that. And sharks just became way more of an anxiety for people than they were previously. And I honestly don't know that we would have had, Shark Week, that kind of stuff, if it wasn't for this film.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure of it. I'm sure we wouldn't have had all the big... Now, this isn't the first shark film. This was the first very successful one. But, yeah, for better or worse, I mean, this had influenced a lot of shark films. Mostly for worse. I mean, there's not many... Deep Blue Sea is funny, but it's not a good movie. And it has a ridiculous scene in it, but it's not a good movie. I have seen that. I did like The Shallows. I like The Shallows with Blake Lively. And not just because it's Blake Lively in a bikini for most of the film. Because honestly, she's kind of beaten up and bloody. And, if that's your thing, that's your thing. Not going to shame you, but
gosh.
not mine.
I think, too, that the film was also cited as a bad thing because it led to so much misinformation about sharks. And I know that I was reading something that said that more, sport fishermen were going out and killing sharks, and it was a whole big thing. So it really was a turning point for society. And I know that a lot of animal activists and scientists also say that it really wasn't a good thing completely.
Oh, most definitely it wasn't. I'm trying to think. There's been another film that had that kind of influence where people just started going out and doing crazy things. I know, I can't think of any movies, but I know the whole thing with rabbits during Easter. People will buy rabbits and then they just let them go out in the wild after Easter, and buying black cats on Halloween.
Yeah.
I've read that some places don't even allow it because they have people sacrificing them. Crazy things. But I believe there's some movies. Yeah, some movies have always had some weird effects. People start thinking things like It did with clowns. Clowns were so misunderstood after It. Caitlyn's like, nah, those clowns deserved it.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Misunderstood. Clowns have always been creepy.
Like we said, there's the shark movie that we saw in the theater for the trailer for. There was a, what's it called? There was another shark movie. The Meg was the most recent big one. Deep Blue Sea. And again, like this movie works because it is pretty basic and it has a reason for them being in the water. I think that's an issue with some shark movies as well. You're like, why are they even there? I think you watched the YouTube video with me, right? Where there was a shark at a pool party.
No, I don't think so.
You know, yeah, there's a fan made comedy trailer for a shark in a pool, and there's a shark attack that happens in the pool, and everybody's panicking. They're like, "What are we gonna do?" And some guy the whole time, the straight character's just going, "Don't go in the pool." And someone says, "But it's so hot." I have to send that to you.
I know there was an Owl Kitty version of Jaws called Claws, but I didn't get to watch it. I was gonna watch it, but I didn't have time.
Oh, I'm trying to remember if I watched that one or not.
Yeah.
Guys, if you have not seen it, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you would appreciate Owl Kitty, where this guy, he accidentally places and edits his cat into movies, like replacing the T-Rex in Jurassic Park with his cat, and it's brilliant.
It is.
Like, he puts a lot of time into it. We also talked about Hiding the Monster, which this movie influenced. And another thing is Stephen Spielberg himself was influenced by this movie, and this is how one of his trademarks started appearing in films, which is a shooting star. So I didn't know this, but a lot of Steven Spielberg's movies, almost all of them, have a shooting star in the film. And the reason is because in this film, yes, and actually, like, it's a blink or you'll miss it type of moment. Mm-hmm. So you really got to be looking for it. But when Roy Snyder is reloading his pistol, a shooting star is seen in the distance. You actually see it twice. And that was actually that's not an effect. That just happened. They just happened to be filming and a shooting star came by. So once Steven Spielberg saw that, he started using it in his movies, which, I mean, if you're looking for a sign of any sort, like if Steven Spielberg wants to be like, yeah, you know, I'm definitely one of the best directors. What makes you so great? Like, my films are so great that God himself came down and gave a little pizzazz.
I'll definitely have to look for a compilation or something of that shooting star, because I did not know that with his films.
I took a look on YouTube, could not find it. It was a quick search, but I didn't find it. So I searched it up on Google and found additional sources stating that, yes, it is a thing. Maybe Spielberg just sits by his computer and every day makes sure nobody's posting it up. Like, nah, you want to see it? Watch my films.
Yeah, maybe.
While this movie is a big influence, it's also very significant as well. You already mentioned that it broke the first 100 mil. The film was the first in wide releases. And we talked about with the effects, but just want to hit on it again that this is one of the most notable attempts at this time for practical effects in water, which did not go well. And I forgot who said, I feel like we talked about it recently, or I read about it, where it said, your greatest enemy in filming is water. Water will ruin everything. They actually almost lost all the film because the boat sank while the actors were still on board, and so was the sound system, the sound crew, and the filming, the film itself. Luckily, the film, while it was cheap, it was still durable to water, so they flew it out and had it re-imaged. They brought it back to life.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the boat started to sink with the talent, but I didn't even think about the film itself being waterlogged.
This also brought the USS Indianapolis to wide attention. The ship itself wasn't found until 2017, so there is a story here, the monologue that you spoke of earlier, Caitlyn, in which they talk about the USS Indianapolis, which was on its way to Hiroshima or on its way to Japan to assist with the dropping of the bomb, and the boat ended up sinking. I believe it was shot down. It was torpedoed by Japanese submarines. And actually, let me double check on that, because I'm wondering why the Japanese sunk it but just left everybody. The USS Indianapolis was struck by torpedoes and then sunk. There were 1,100 sailors on board, and 316 of them made it out. The reason being is because they released, the way the movie portrays it is that because they were on a covert mission, word didn't get back that they had a distress. So it wasn't until days later that they found the sailors and were able to rescue them. And they died to multiple causes. Here in the movie, they say a lot of it was due to tiger sharks. However, they stated there were some survivors who stated that it wasn't tiger sharks that ate them. The tiger sharks were only worried about the dead. Like they were fine just eating whoever died. They didn't need the live people.
Well, you
And
think
that's the thing
that
with
like
sharks.
hyperthermia would be an issue, and
Yeah, hypothermia and dehydration and saltwater intake were
yeah,
all that was killing a lot of them, and then the sharks were just eating the bodies that were falling into the water. Though it makes for a great monologue into this. But yeah, nobody knew about this. And we talked a lot in all these movies. That's why I like to say that we do more than just a review and a discussion because we learn a lot from real life, real world incidents that occurred. And this ship actually wasn't found till 2017. So this movie came out in 1975. The ship sank during World War II. And it was Paul Allen who found it, who is a co-founder of Microsoft or co-owner of Microsoft at the time, who ended up finding the vessel. But again, not till 2017.
yeah. I honestly didn't know anything about it until I watched this film, so I definitely learned something as well.
And the last significance I have is the man, the myth, the legend, Stephen Spielberg. Like you said, this was only his second film. He was really known for his TV movie Duel, and then he had another feature film outside, which I believe went to theaters. It does have a box office gross, and that was Sugarland Express, which I really want to see now. Do you have anything else for the significance?
Well, I know that this film did get a lot of critical reception as far as the social commentary, and there's been a lot of talk about what this means as a social commentary. I know that some people have said this contains post-Watergate cynicism, mainly with the cynical behavior towards those in power, and you see that with the mayor. You see this as a commentary on contemporary American life. You also see in this film that it's a creature that targets anyone regardless of the socioeconomic status, so there definitely is a question of the economy and financial stability of this town as a tourist town that it brings up. So I do think that there are a lot of social issues and commentary that are in this film. There's a film critic, Neil Gambler, who saw 3 different approaches to tackling the obstacle. And he said that Hooper in this film represents the science and technology being used to tackle a problem, whereas Quint represents spiritualism, and then Brody represents the common man. And I think in general you do see a lot of antagonism between science and technology and the spiritualism. So I thought that was an interesting commentary.
I can see that, though I don't see Quint as a spiritual man. A man of spirits, yes.
Yes, a man of spirits. No, but he really does represent kind of the... He seems like someone who would be superstitious and believes that things happen for a reason.
He reminded me just of a old head who had a traditional way of doing things. He just reminded me of the traditional man, and then you have that combated with the guy who has all his fancy tech gear.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that given what happened to him, that he definitely wanted revenge and wanted to kill Jaws or kill Brucey for personal and reasons, for personal fulfillment reasons. So I can see where he represents spiritualism.
Yes, it's an interesting coincidence. I mean, I guess he really got into the character because he actually went on to become a shark hunter.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, no, for real. He
Wow.
went on and he went on to hunt for a lot of sharks. He took that game and he had a lot of shark jaws within his home.
Interesting. Okay.
And with these influences and the significance and what we've been talking about, and that's kind of almost, it's a little bit below the surface of what's available with this film. I'm really interested now to watch the documentary for the making of Jaws, because I was reading this, and usually I'll read like all, if not most, of the fun facts, and this one just had so many.
There was a lot.
Like I got through the primary ones, but there's so much that went on to this film, and it was very interesting. It was very interesting, the things that they did for this film. If you're interested in the technical aspects for a lot of things, then this is gonna be a movie to look at.
Yeah, I think we're only touching the surface of all the things that went into this film, all the things that went wrong during the making of this film. So definitely check it out, and if you have any fun facts for us, definitely send it our way as well.
And while checking that out, and speaking of checking things out, Caitlin, who would you recommend to check out this movie? Would it be the cinephiles, the general audience, those in between, shark enthusiasts, Bruce lovers?
I'm gonna suggest this one. I mean, I would suggest this to everyone. I think that cinephiles have a lot that they can take out of this, but there's a specific reason why I would recommend it to a general audience that I think I'm gonna hold off my reasoning for a little bit until we get to the does it hold up section, but then I'll explain my reasoning a little bit then.
Okay. And I would say that this is for everybody. I mean, this is the summer blockbuster. You're going to enjoy, if you're a general audience member, you're going to enjoy just watching this man go after a shark and a shark eating people. And I would say this for the cinephiles. Well, it's Stephen Spielberg. Really shouldn't have to say much more to the cinephiles. Like, hey, Stephen Spielberg. But it's one of the biggest takeaways from this movie, I have to say, is watching a basic film and watching it be done still and making it great. Like, just you don't have to get too much. Like, if I was to recommend this to any cinephile, it would be the Wachowskis, because the Wachowskis, like, their movies just got too crazy. It's like, man, if you guys just dial it back a bit, then you can still make a great movie. You don't have to, I'll use this as an example because this is the year of it. You don't have to get into the multiverse to make an interesting movie. You can have one universe. You have two settings in this movie. You have a shore and an ocean. Really, that's it. And I know, Caitlin, you said it drags a bit. I would say, like, it's still, for me, it's still a great movie. And whether you like it or not, I think anybody can agree that it's still a very well-made movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. Have you still not seen Tintin, Adventures of Tintin?
No, because every time I hear Tintin, I think of Polar Express, and it weirds me out.
No, don't think that. We might have to put Tintin. I don't know. I might have to see if it really falls under must see, but I really enjoyed it. It's another good Spielberg. I want the second one. I want the sequel.
I'm here with my godchildren, so that could be a good movie. It's a kid's movie, right?
How old?
They're real young. The oldest is 3. About to be 3.
I'd have to rewatch it. Probably not that young.
Okay, never mind. But I'll watch it. Wait, Caitlin, do you see that? Do you see that over there in the water?
Wait, what is that?
We're gonna need a bigger podcast for these spoilers coming in.
Oh my gosh. I should have known you were going there with it.
Honestly, I wasn't thinking about using that one. Spring of the moment, I decided to put it in right there.
Oh, so you improvised the line, much like it was improvised in the movie.
Yes, so double improvise, I think, makes it original.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I don't know about that.
But no, in all seriousness, guys, spoilers are going to be coming in. So if you have not seen this film, I at least recommend that you go ahead and watch the film. Watch it, come back to the podcast, and continue listening, because we're going to be talking more in depth, but we're also going to go into whether or not this holds up and our overall letter grade, and probably addition some more fun facts. But if you don't care about spoilers at all, or you've seen the movie, then hey, continue paddling with us. Caitlin, you want to go ahead and start with the spoilers? Where do you want to begin? Because honestly, there's not much to spoil except for how this ends, but you may have somewhere else that you would like to point out.
No, I was actually wondering, like, there really isn't that much to spoil for this movie except for, the ending. So I guess we can start with that. Unless there was something else that you thought of that was a spoiler before then.
No?
I don't really think there is anything. What did you think of the ending? What is your personal opinion about how this ended? Because for me, there were moments that I liked in the final moments, but as far as how the shark gets taken out, I will say I was a little underwhelmed.
For me, it was all right. It was nothing, I don't think it was too spectacular, too, like, extremely crazy. Like, it wasn't as far out as, have you seen Deep Blue Sea?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a whole different shark explosion right there. But for this film, No, I mean, again, it's very standard, and I feel like they killed a shark. It's nothing that makes me go, jump out of my seat, go wow, cheer in the air, seeing it defeated, which I feel like for that time it's not something I was really expecting. I feel like now with a lot of movies, especially horror and action films, you get like that real creative, real extravagant final blow.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't that.
Yeah, no. I mean, it goes out with a bang, but that's it. So one thing that I really liked is the whole bringing down of the ship in this, just like how it slowly comes down, how the problems keep just rising and rising, get that snowball effect till it finally goes down. It's not just he hits it once, they're going down, and then it all breaks apart, which again, like I said, kind of dragged for me for a little bit. They were fighting the shark for a while, so I could have used with some of that being cut. But other than that, I mean, it all worked out for me. It's not one of my favorite movie endings, but I wasn't underwhelmed by it. I was whelmed.
You're whelmed, okay. I think Quinn's stuff, it was so silly, but I did like that scene just because it is a very, I don't know if it was stereotypical for its time, but if a boat being on its side and he's just fallen into the shark's mouth, it was a funny scene. I enjoyed it, even though it is a little stereotypical now.
I feel like anybody else, instead of him accidentally falling, like he would have purposely like slid machete in hand going towards that shark.
Yeah, that's true. He like really didn't even put a dent on that shark though. He was beating it up while it was like tearing at him, and there was no damage.
That's another thing about this movie when it comes to shark is a misinterpretation, is that sharks don't like confrontation.
No.
You punch a shark in the nose, in the gills, you make fun of his mother, it's gonna go away for a bit. But here, man, this shark takes hit after hit and keeps coming back. It gets shot, harpooned, stabbed, poked, jabbed. It's got barrels on it.
Nothing's bringing it down. I was glad that Hooper made it, because you really didn't think he made it for a while there. And he just kind of pops up out the water at the end.
He wasn't supposed to make it.
Really?
Yeah, so that scene that they were filming with the cage, where the shark rips it apart. And like the shark really, what they weren't expecting though was the shark to just tear that cage apart. Like when it tears it apart, it does that in real life. Like that wasn't scripted. Because of that, they were unable to convince the actor that they had stand in for Hooper. They couldn't convince him to go back into the water inside the broken cage to get the shot.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't either. Like, hey, get in this thing that the shark obviously did not like. That shark's going to see that from a mile away and go, what, you want round two? So because at first there was a dummy in it. So then when they were going to go for the shot and I guess do whatever they had to do to make it look like he was eaten by the shark, he said, no, unless you're trying to film me getting eaten by a real shark, which I'm not cool with either, I'm out.
Gotcha.
So they were like, all right, we'll have Hooper swim to the bottom. He'll come back up.
Gotcha. Well, I did like that, though. I like that he made it.
Yeah, I did too. I wish that his gear did more work.
Yeah.
I wish we got to see more of that. Like, I wish I got to see kind of a balance of the old and the new. It seemed like the old worked. Like, the new did nothing.
Yeah.
And man, this man has some slippery fingers. For being somebody that works in the water a lot, he dropped 2 important items. He dropped a shark tooth.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the one was the shark tooth when he saw the corpse.
Which I really can't blame him.
Yeah.
He dropped the syringe.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, he's about to get Bruce's booster.
I mean, he's underwater. I guess it would be a little harder to hold on to.
He works in the water. He had on gloves.
Yeah, well.
What was he doing? Like eating a stick of butter while he was underneath in between takes?
Yeah. One thing I do want to talk about, just kind of rewinding a little bit. There was a moment that you said you thought was going to have more of an impact, but then the pacing kind of ruined it. Were you referring to the slap?
I was referring to that whole thing, not just the slap.
Okay.
The slap itself was good because it was actually real as well. It was the 18th take that they used.
Yep.
But I just feel like, so the boy dies, and then we go into the meeting. We go into the meeting, and everybody's talking about, like, no, it seems like there's more people saying we have to keep the place open. But it's like, wait a minute, somebody just literally died. Like, I can understand a couple of people, like, I can understand a couple politicians being like having a secret meeting, like, hey, what are we gonna do? Like, hey, don't worry about it. We're gonna keep the beaches open. But to have most of the town, like, these are people that you live with, you live next door, and someone that's saying, no, we gotta remain open, like, that didn't seem right. So it felt kind of downplayed. I wrote in my notes, didn't a kid just die? Because I felt none of that impact. But then it gets brought back around when Miss Kittner finds out about him. But at that point, I mean, like, we've had so much time in between. And then again, we don't have much time with Brody really kind of, at that moment, he's taking it in. But we don't really get a moment that he takes it in. I think maybe on the boat, if he talked about it, like if he had a heart to heart with one of the characters, like, hey, why are you like, man, you don't like boats. Like, why are you out here? Like, you didn't need to come with. And he said, well, this is what happened. And, you know, I can't allow it to happen ever again. And if I am to die out here, then so be it. But it kind of, it disappears for a second, and then it comes back, but doesn't have the effect, and then disappears again. But it's such a big thing to have a child's death on your hands. But I don't think it was handled appropriately. Not appropriately. I don't think it was handled with any impact in the script. It's just another body.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, unlike Chrissy, like, Chrissy just happened. Apparently a dog was eaten. I forgot about that one. That just happens. But the kid, that could have been prevented. So that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That seemed to slap. I mean, other than just a slap being real, I mean, that really was an emotionally charged scene, and that's why I kind of expected more to come from that, where you showed that empathy, where you shows the repercussions of that. But I feel like it kind of got glossed over after that.
I mean, you see it visually with his character again, but I mean, we kind of already saw that with visually, like, he's an anxious character.
Mm-hmm.
But there could have been, and should have been, in my eyes, more to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there anything else to spoil in this movie?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, no point in just waiting around in the water. Man, how many water puns have I put in so far? Somebody give me a count. So I'm interested in this one for you, because you said you already had something to talk about. Does this hold up?
Yeah, and it's kind of why I wanted to give this to a general audience, because I think that there is a particular thing in this film that really does hold up. And when I was talking to my boyfriend that I was going to be watching this movie, he brought up a meme that went around recently, probably came out last year or so, and I remembered it clearly as well. And it was said, you know, you think about watching Jaws, how unrealistic it is that you have this danger and people are still going to the beach. But at the same time, with COVID, you have this danger out there and people are not taking the precautions that they needed to with COVID. And it kind of just shows you that people kind of don't always do what's best for them, and they ignore the danger signs, and they just kind of do what they need to do. And you could see in this film, with the failings on their leadership with the mayor, you can see the question about, is our tourist economy more important than these lives? That kind of dilemma in this film, it just felt so timely with COVID.
Oh, most definitely. That's why nobody's surprised. I mean, yeah, we made memes and posts about it that our politicians weren't doing anything. They were concerned about, you know, more of the economy than the safety, or so it seemed. And yeah, it's portrayed in this movie brilliantly, but we've seen it throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's just like what is it? Another movie that does it well is Monsters Inc. Monsters Incorporated, where the boss, I forget what he says, but he's pretty much like, I don't care what happens or
I'll
like
let
how many
100
kids he has
children
killed.
die before I
Yes,
something.
that right there.
Yeah. But I feel like, I mean, this more so than Monsters Inc., I just think that it was things that we definitely saw, like in the news and conversations that we were hearing. And I mean, you do watch this and you think, why would you go to the beach? Why would you go in the water knowing this is happening, you know, from a logical point of view? But then you compare it to what's going on now and you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. I mean, I don't get it, I don't understand it or agree with it, but at the same time, this is just how people are.
Yeah, especially with the politics. It reminds me kind of another thing that we see more so in movies than this political angle, which is the. I mean, I feel like we see three of them. We see like the mayor who doesn't want to close down the town. We see the researcher who prefers to get the samples over the lives of anybody else, and then you got the military dude who wants to get something to increase the military's weaponry. No, but and it doesn't depend on the lives. And I'll say probably the one throughout history that we got the most proof about is the political one, the mayor.
Yeah, and I mean, it does seem stereotypical, but that's why I think that I would recommend this to a general audience, just because right now, I was thinking that maybe a younger audience might not, like, I had the question, is this film going to be dated for a younger audience? But I think, no, I don't think it is, because I think that there's a lot of younger audience that can take a lot from this film because of that metaphor, of that connection with COVID. I mean, that coupled with just the effects, they hold up. Of course, the effects hold up. We've seen this time and time again. When you use practical effects, they're going to hold up.
Especially when Spielberg uses practical effects.
Yeah. I mean, that's not even a question. It's a Spielberg movie. It's gonna be all right.
And this is the question that I've been wondering. What is your overall rating of this film? Hold on, let me think of it. Okay, I think I got it. Go for it.
I'm gonna give this a B-. That minus being from my personal enjoyment, which I didn't have a good time with this film, and I think it's a weaker film of Spielberg's. But I can't deny all the things that it did. I can't deny its accomplishments and the effects and the things that it does right. And the things that I did enjoy in the film, I really, really did enjoy. I think there's good performances in here, even though I didn't like our main character. There are definitely things to enjoy from this film. It's just, it definitely dragged a lot for me, and the premise isn't going to be my favorite. But so B-, I think I'm comfortable with, to recognize what it is, what it accomplished, but also leveraging with it my personal opinion.
I was right on the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking B, and then I was like, wait, let me take away a little points because of her enjoyment. Got it. For me, I'm going to go A-. And I was originally going A. That's what I had in my notes. And then while talking, I was going to take away a couple points, again, because of not so much enjoyment, but I think the movie, it dragged for me for a second, and then I think it would drag for other people. Time varies, of course, I think. And it dragged longer for you, for me, not so much. But also, I got to keep this in the A tier because this really is the best, maybe not the best, but this is one of the best basic movies out there. Like, just very basic premise in horror blockbuster. This is somewhat of an adventure film, almost. Like, it's not, but I get it almost has the same sense to it. I get the same feeling. And watching this a second time and being able to appreciate the technical side more, and again, not being bored watching it the second time, says something about the film. And like we said, Spielberg is fantastic. Everything technical with this movie is something to applaud. Mm-hmm. So I will go ahead and say this is a A- film. Definitely a must see.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I respect that. Like I said, it's just my personal enjoyment. It's just kind of bringing it down. But everything else that you said, I completely agree with. For Jaws, I did want to say that this will be re-released in IMAX in September along with E.T. I believe it's the anniversary of E.T. and it's just being released along with it. So you do have a chance to see this on a big screen this summer or before the summer ends.
I may see E.T. I'll debate seeing this because I haven't seen E.T. and I don't remember anything really from E.T.
I love E.T. I probably will go and see E.T. again. I mean, I got a chance to see Jurassic Park in IMAX when it came out, so it would be really cool to see E.T. again. I think I'll pass on this one. But, if you haven't seen Jaws and you're just listening to this podcast, I definitely recommend go see it on a big screen because, when you think blockbuster, you think big screen. And so it might be a good experience in IMAX.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend seeing this on the big screen. I mean, the only reason that I'm not going to be going out to the IMAX is because it'll be my third time, and then it's going to be so soon after watching it my second time. Like a lot of films, there's not many films that I would want to watch. I feel like I'd be just doing a disservice to it.
Mm-hmm. In the meantime, Bryant, get ready to pack your guitar. We're going to Mexico. We do have Latin American Heritage Month coming up in September. So we're going to go ahead for our next message, head to Mexico, and we're going to watch El Mariachi, a 1992 directorial debut from Robert Rodriguez that started his Mexico trilogy. So that should be a fun experience because I haven't watched it. You haven't watched it either?
I have not.
Yeah, so we'll have one that neither of us has watched. It's been a bit, I think. Well, neither of us watched Pretty Woman, but for this one, obviously, one of us seen and one of us hadn't. But it should be a fun one to watch and a good one to watch. I've definitely heard a lot of buzz about it, and it should be a good one for Latin American History Month. But in the meantime, if you want to connect with us on social media, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at OpSilverScreen. On Facebook, we're going to be at Operation Silver Screen, but on Twitter and Instagram, that's OpSilverScreen. Bryant mentioned before he did post his Letterboxd Friday post recently on our social media, but if you want to go to our Letterboxd and see what else we're watching, not just on Fridays, but just watching throughout the week, and maybe seeing some other reviews of things that we don't talk about on here, you can follow Bryant at SwankSeal. That's capital S, and you can follow me at Coffee Spoon Kate. That's Coffee Spoon CAIT.
Yes, make sure to follow us because we've noticed that every time we post up an episode, we get a same number of views. Like there's somebody listening to us on the regular. So honestly, there's two options. Either you find us or we'll find you. And we'll prefer the former of that. The latter?
The latter.
Yes.
No, the latter would be the second one.
Yeah, the former. I had it right.
The former, yeah.
Yeah, we prefer the former. See what you're doing to us? My grammar's all over the place. You guys got me frustrated. We look forward to hearing from you and, to see what we have in store as well for you and just to hear your feedback as well. And we'll continue to bring you great content and even better content in the future.
All right. Until next time, I'm Caitlyn.
And I'm Bryant. See ya.